today's chat is going to be all about systems thinking, Compass tools, and youth agency. You're going to hear from one educator and a couple of students about their experiences with using systems thinking tools they've worked with through Compass in their own communities, and have the chance to converse, ask questions, etc. You'll hear about several tools today. Definitely the sustainability compass, which is something we strongly use at Compass Education, since it's the way we envision creating a more sustainable world. And our mission is to help create a more sustainable world by educating and acting to do so, working with learning communities. You'll also see some other systems thinking tools that Nestor and Sesame will talk about. If you have questions about any of them, just hold on to them and we can chat more about them and get you more resources. So without too much ado, I'm actually going to hand it right over to Cindy, Nestor, and Sesame to begin sharing their story. And I think let's hear from them and then we'll open it up to questions right afterwards.
Nestor and Sesame, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure.
Feel
Sesame,
free
do you
to
want to go
stop sharing
ahead?
while you introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Nestor.
All right. So first of all, hello, everyone. So my name is Nestor. And so the first time that I was involved with Compass Education was through the Compass Youth Camp for Leaders that I joined as a camper in 2018, in the summer of 2018. And then the next year, I returned as a facilitator in 2019. And so since then, I've been doing a few workshops. I've been hosting a few workshops for my school community and also for my for the wider community to raise awareness about the tools that I learned through my camps there.
Thank you, Nestor. Hey everyone, I'm Sesame. I'm from Vietnam. Coincidentally, I went to the same camp as Nestor in 2018 as a camper and become a facilitator in Chiang Mai, Thailand in 2019. And I've been looking back at the Compass tools ever since. I've been trying to implement it into our sustainability vision and committee in our school, and looking for ways to introduce it into the curriculum, extracurriculars, and things like that. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys today.
Thank you, Nestor and Sesame. And hi, everyone. It's so lovely to see you. I am Cindy, and I have been working with Compass Education for, I think, about 8 or more than 8 years now, and have had the pleasure of working with like-minded and amazing educators like yourselves here, and also amazing students, youth leaders like Sesame and Nestor. And I'm so happy to be here with you today. And I am going to share screen now so we can hear more from Nestor and Sesame on how they have been utilizing the Compass tools in being change makers in their schools. All right, Nestor. I think. Gitangeli, would you like to jump in and share a bit more about Compass Education first before we hear from Nestor?
How many people on the call are unfamiliar with the sustainability compass? Just give me a wave if you're unfamiliar with it. All right, I think we have a pretty familiar group of educators on here, so I'll do the quick 20-second spiel. The Sustainability Compass is a systems thinking tool that can help us navigate a path to creating a more sustainable world. Essentially, we believe that to build a more sustainable world, you have to think about the different systems where we live. Nature, all of the natural world that surrounds us, like biodiversity and ecosystems, economy, the human economic systems that sustain our livelihoods and allow us to prosper. Society, the social communities and institutions that support us and bring us together, and well-being, the individual health and happiness. So the Sustainability Compass is one tool you're going to hear Nestor and Sesame talk about. And if you'd like explanation on any of the others, we can chat more about them after their stories.
Sure. So we'll start by just talking a bit about how we have recently used the systems thinking tools in our projects. Then we'll have an open discussion, and then at the end you can ask us any questions that you may still have. So Sesame, do you want to start with your personal story?
Sure, thank you, Nestor. So to start off, I go to school in Armenia, very small place, very small country. Sustainability is still a relatively new thing there. And our school is quite new as well, but we're trying to implement sustainability as one of our core values. And it's been a mission for a long time. We have a committee called the Sustainability Committee dedicated to this cause. They try to involve the idea of environmental awareness into our into our curriculum, into our extracurriculars, and as well as activities like CAS activities. So we were just thinking about next year, since we had a new generation of students, we're going to have an induction period for them. We want to somehow weave sustainability into the way we're going to present the school next year to these new students. So what I did was introduce these tools to my fellow students in the sustainability committee. If you could move to the next slide, Cindy. So first of all, we started off with the sustainability compass. This is how do you say it? A cleaned up version of what we did at school. It basically outlines the 5 things that the students came up with, or the 5 main things. So one of the things we had was food waste in the cafeteria and in snack times. We also had energy conservation and management. So let's say lights at night, students leaving the AC on and things like that. And we also had building development and infrastructure, how the buildings were designed and how they were maintained in order to keep the maximum amount of energy efficiency. And we tied these issues together down to something that involves with society, or basically the mindset of the students and staff in the school. And that comes down to student and staff members' awareness, as well as sustainability in our curriculum. If you go to the next slide. So what we did was basically a trial period of a few student volunteers and see how they can come up with a few problems that have been going on at the school, identify them, look at why they're happening. If you're looking at these prompt questions in this pyramid light, what is happening, why is it happening, what can we do, and how can we do it? And we had a group of students sat together to think about these issues, and we came up with a few small ideas. They were quite simplified into these few sentences. And after looking at them, we moved on to the amoeba to basically identify who the change makers are, who we can tackle, who we can go to in order to get these changes implemented. And we looked at people like the academic head or the student council as change agent, student-led initiatives or extracurriculars as transformers. And at last of all, we have the big leverage point, and that's the Board of Governors, and we had to go there as well. So this serves as an example of how we can deliver this to next year's induction. We can introduce it to the new generation of students and potentially have them outline the goals, introduce to them the problems within our school, have them outline the goals of what they want to achieve, how they can help fix it, how we can implement sustainability into our curriculum more, and then at the end of the year, reflecting on using the same tools, or maybe even things that they've thought of during the course of the year. And that's it for me, thank you. Nestor?
Thank you, Sesame. Yeah, and so for me recently, or like last year, I completed my CAS project with 2 other students. And so for those of you who may not know what the CAS project is, if you're not in an IB school, the CAS project is just a collaborative project between students exploring a global issue. And so I really wanted to share with the rest of the world the sustainability compass, because I really believe that this tool can really we can really change sustainability if we are able to use this tool in our project and our thoughts and so on. And so I reached out to 2 of my friends who had no Compass education training, and asked them if they wanted to embark with me on this journey of doing our project on this tool. And so they were glad, and they were really enthusiastic about it. And so the first thing that I did was to share my knowledge on this tool and on Compass education with them, and to practice teaching this tool with them, so that then we could teach it to an audience of young secondary students. And so initially we thought that we would be able to present this workshop and lead this workshop at the Global Issues Network conference, hosted by NIST school in Bangkok, Thailand. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this conference got canceled. And so as a result, we had to present our workshop at a secondary leadership conference hosted by my school. And so we did a total of 3 workshops over the span of 1 day for an audience of secondary students coming from over 12 schools in the area. And yeah, and so we may not know the overall impact that those workshops had, because we are not from the same school as the rest of the students that participated in this workshop. However, a few students from my school's Green Club participated in this workshop, and we could really see in the coming month how they really changed their approach to sustainability. Before the workshop, they really focused on the nature point, because it's the most apparent of the 4 compass points. And so their actions really were about doing beach cleanups on the beach, and also cleanups around the school, and to really limit littering in the school and so on. But after this workshop, they started more to think of the other compass points, notably the economy point, where they started to think about the economic cost of energy use and inadequate infrastructure design in our school, which is quite expensive and so on. So yeah, there was quite a change in their actions and a change in their focus, I would say. And on the next slide is just a brief summary of of our project, which was published on the IRCOS magazine sometime last year. So yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nestor and Sesame, for sharing a little bit about your experiences. I would love to open it up to questions and follow-up explorations from everyone on the call.
Nestor and Sesame, it's really impressive to see like what you've gone on and done since the CYC camp, and how you've carried on thinking about the tools and putting them into your activities. So really well done for that. And you say that you perhaps don't know the impact by working with the students, but the very fact of the impact that it has, the Compass tool made on you, and that you've gone on to use it, I would guess that amongst all those students that you've reached out, some of them are going to have a sort of a light bulb moment and will go on to use it. So yeah, really encouraging.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I have a little question, if that's okay. Sesame, I was just wondering, when you work with the pyramid, did you build a pyramid with your peers, or did you just use it as a kind of flat structure for your inquiry?
I mean, I thank you for your question, Kath. It would have been amazing if I'm sorry, my English is messing up today. It would have been amazing if we were able to build it, but it was the last week of school, and I was like, hey, let's do something for induction. So we just scrapped together something to see if it actually worked. And it was a relatively new concept to the students as well, because it was introduced, and they grasped it quite quickly, and they were like, hey, okay, we'll just come up with one pyramid and see if it works, and we can use that as an example for the first years next year, and implement it into the process. So not yet, but hopefully next year we will be able to.
Oh, I love that. Make sure you post somewhere so we can see it if you build it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you for your question.
I heard, oh, I see a question from Elaine. So why don't you go ahead?
Hi, I'm Elaine. Nice to meet you. And it's great hearing your experiences with the tools that you're using. My question is about the amoeba, and how did you find the adults respond to you when you were engaging them to initiate the changes? or your ideas, share your ideas?
Thank you for your question, Elaine. This is a very rough draft, so we haven't actually engaged any adults. We've only used the experiences that we have gained from the policies that we've tried to push for in the past in sustainability. And what we've realized is that there are some people we should approach for certain issues and not. And we haven't, in terms of the tools itself, it hasn't been introduced yet into the faculties of the community. But hopefully we will be able to do that next year before induction, so we can introduce, so the staff has an understanding of what these tools are, and they can work side by side with us for implementing this.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for your question.
I heard Linda mention an aha moment, and I wonder, Sesame or Nestor, as you were learning about any of these Compass tools or working at the cycle camp, can you recall an aha moment where you realized these tools could be useful at your school or that you wanted to use them?
Sure, yeah. And so, yeah, thank you for your question. First, Sesame and I, we both went to the same school 2 years ago. And so we went to the camp together. And when we were there, and especially with the sustainability compass, when we really learned about it, we really kind of found out about what sustainability really was. Before all that our school really told us about sustainability is, oh, just focus on nature, just focus on the environment. We have to preserve it. That's all sustainability is. But then when we really started to see these 3 other compass points that the school never considered, or that that our school's Green Club really didn't focus on as much, it really made us feel that we really should use this tool, come back to our school, and share it with the rest of the student population, so that we can work on more projects that do not solely focus on the nature point of view.
Nestor is absolutely right. And whenever I've changed 2 schools now, and since the last school that we attended to, and in both of those schools, when you look at their sustainability missions from the Compass lens of view, you see that, especially looking at the economic point, there's a lot of things that the school has to actually implement in terms of fees and feasibility as well, in order to pass anything that's sustainable. It's actually very, very difficult to get things done, especially in terms of, let's say, building infrastructure. They have to change a whole system, or a heating system, or cooling system, or even the structure of the building itself. And when you look at the societal aspect of it, it's even more difficult to change the way people think in the schools, even though one of the core values of the school is heavily focused on sustainability. And it takes so much work to actually get that over or implement something. And it's really something that the Compass introduced to us, that it's important to, as Nestor said, look at it from different perspectives.
We have a couple of questions in the chat that I think relate to something you've both just touched upon, which is introducing the compass in schools where perhaps it's not familiar to other students or the teachers or the decision makers you're working with. So Doris asks, what are some of the best approaches to introducing Compass education or the tools to your schools, especially to people who might not be fully engaged in sustainability?
So you want to take this one, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can both, you can just add on to something, I would say. So I feel like, first of all, it would be very important for a school to have a green club. Although after going to Compass Education's camps and undergoing Compass Education's training, I feel like schools maybe should change the name Green Club. Like, for example, in my current school, we have a Green Club, but we also have, we had something called the Do Something Society, which also is a sustainability club, but which focuses more on, which focuses more on society and on its well-being, as well as the economic side. So I feel like it would be very important for a school to have at least one group which encompasses the 4 perspectives offered by the Compass tool. And then that club can coordinate with the school leadership to raise awareness on sustainability, and perhaps even organizing some sustainability related events throughout the school calendar, and also to bring the wider school community, so parents, siblings, and so on, into those activities, and not only the students that go to this school in particular.
Like Nestor says, that's it. One other thing I would like to add on is it's about how much representation, or let's say how much leverage the school actually gives the student in order to pass those clubs, or not pass those clubs, but how much leverage they give it to the clubs, how much power they give to the club, if that's the right way to say it. Because I do know is that at the school I am at right now, it's relatively difficult to pass something that is, or at least the tools, unless you're at unless you're in some position of power or a position of representation. You have to go through a long process. It's a very bureaucratic process. It's a lot of bureaucracy. You have to bring it up to a head of department, maybe you even have to bring it up to administration. And that, if it's a big change, something that has to do with infrastructure, maybe sometimes even the culture of the student body, it needs to go up to the Board of Governors for a board mandate if it's something that needs to be pushed. So it's really about how flexible the school system is in order for students to implement change.
A different question, but I was interested to see on your compass, on your pyramid light, that you felt that there was not enthusiasm amongst the broader student body to be involved with getting more information and taking part in sustainable things. Have you found a way to make the sustainable topic more exciting or more cool or more approachable to more people? Because yeah, I've met it too, that sustainability, and people are sort of greened out or fed up with hearing the word. What have you come up with, any ideas to make it something that people want to be involved with?
Our school offers a range of, not our school, but the student body, or at least the clubs that run sustainability focused activities. They offer a focus week that we spend a whole week on environmental awareness, sustainability related stuff. But outside of that, it's really much so that it's the student body's awareness. As you said, it's very difficult to get them to be involved in all these activities. And the one solution that we have thought of is in the pyramid. It's, how do I say it? It's basically approaching the new generation with a different mentality. If we as second years or as the older generation come into the new school year with enthusiasm about these issues, then it's going to reflect it on our first years. And that's why we're trying to make an induction process where sustainability is something that is much, much bigger in our school. We're going to make more interactive stuff. That's probably going to work better than what they have now, which is lectures. And that hasn't worked so well. So we're looking at other opportunities as well. But thank you for your question. That's a very good question.
Well, may I jump in and share a bit about that as well? And I think that's a great question, Linda. And I think Sesame really did capture the essence to it. From my experience, I found that when students are influencing students in terms of connecting that passion, that's when it's the most powerful. If it's coming from adults, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't really work. But when it's coming from students, especially the year level above or 2 more year levels above, and they look up to the older students, that's when the magic happens.
I think many of the things that you've mentioned, Nestor, Sesame, and now Cindy, relate to the power of students speaking with students. but school structures are largely influenced by adults, and we are on a call with educators here. So I see that Alex asked in the chat, how do you plan to approach adult decision makers? How do you incorporate Compass tools? I think you touched on this a tiny bit, but could you all speak a little bit more to how you work with the advisors and adults in your settings?
Maybe Nestor and Sesame, can you please share with the educators here about your experience working with your teachers in your first school, Green Shoots? How you were able to work together side by side with the teacher and influence more of a whole school sustainability shift?
Sure. An example of that would be when Sesame and I returned from our first camp in 2018. We returned to the school with a lot of knowledge about the tools and systems thinking. And a few months later, the school asked us if we wanted to collaborate with them and to facilitate a workshop by some of Compass Education's professionals who would come to the school and to hold a workshop with the whole school community. So all the teachers, all the administrators, all the parents, all the siblings, really the entire community, and how we could then all work together and all have our input in addressing sustainability in our school. And so it was really interesting because we really collaborated, of course, with the school leadership on creating this event, but also we then spoke to parents and to other students and really understood their concerns, which then we were able to report back to some of the people in the higher hierarchy or the student leadership. Sesame?
Yeah, Nestor has explained it quite well. I don't know what else I have to add on. But Alex, your question about how we're planning to implement the Compass tools. As of today, I think with Nestor's thing, he has brought it to his community and he has tried to educate it into a range of schools, actually. What'd you say it was, Nestor? 12 schools? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
What we did in our school was, what we're planning to do is basically getting it to maybe implement it into the planning process where both staff and student can be transparent in seeing the process happen. Because transparency is a very big thing that our school is trying to work towards. And we're trying to get student and staff to work together side by side. And the best way to do that is probably have a platform where they can put all their ideas there, debate it out, and then implement change. And the Compass works as a perfect platform for that, for what we've seen in our past experiences.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's really interesting stuff, and I'm very inspired by what you're doing. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you need a kind of a top-down and a bottom-up approach. It's great that you bring in these big ideas to organizations and schools, and that's absolutely necessary. And also, hopefully, you need the buy-in from those administrators and the leadership team as well, so that they can really integrate sustainability within the kind of mission and vision of the school. But you're doing a great job, so keep it up.
Thank you, Alex. And I think if I can jump in and share a bit from my experience as an educator, I find it the most effective and successful when you find that 1 to 2 student leaders that are passionate about sustainability, and you find 1 to 2 teachers that are passionate and 1 to 2 parents who are passionate. Join forces and start a discussion like Sesame and Nestor talked about. Start assessing and looking at the different perspectives, what can be done, what cannot be done, come up with a really, really impeccable proposal, then approach leadership together as a team. And I oftentimes find leadership hard to say no to those proposals. And so far, they have been quite successful. If it's just by one teacher or one student, oftentimes it's like, maybe not, come back to us after you have more of a solid plan. But you have students, teachers, parents, it's a whole team. Then the school will usually say, oh, so much work has been done already. So much different perspective, different stakeholders. Why not? Let's join in and make a difference.
Yeah, plus if you've got a strategic plan and you've written it all down on paper, it's very hard for anyone to argue with that, especially if you're presenting everything in the context of these well considered tools, and you've done your research and you've got some data. That's probably the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jumping onto that a little bit, something I found to be really successful, and it sounds like you're doing a bit of Sesame and Nestor. I found it's really useful to have students invite parents and teachers to workshops. So to, like you were saying, Sesame, to use the Compass as a kind of scaffold, a platform for having conversations. We talk here at Compass Education about the power of invitation a lot. So I think it's really powerful to see students invite other people to come and learn from them. And that's kind of what we're lucky enough to be doing here today. One question I have, which you can think about a little bit before you answer if you'd like, is what you would request from the teachers and the administrators and the adults that you work with. What would you ask from the people around you to better support you and support the work that you're trying to do, which we can all keep in mind?
Nestor, you got something for us?
I would just say to ensure that communication is facilitated between teachers and students. And so whenever a student comes up with an idea, that there is a process that students know about on how they could approach teachers, but also administrators that are higher up in the school leadership. And then we could then implement some new projects to focus more on sustainability, for example. And so in my current school, for example, we really learn a lot about how to approach the school leadership if we have any new suggestions or any new projects that we really want to develop in the school. And so I would say that this is something that I wish maybe other schools had a really clear process on how to approach the school, I guess.
Yeah, I think as well, it's a good idea to try and get as high as you can up the hierarchy. So board of governors, as well as the actual school day-to-day leadership. Yeah, I think try and get everyone together in one place if possible, or structure it so that you'd have those conversations until you get to where you need to be for the actual decisions to be made. But that sounds like a really good idea. And if it's driven largely by you as students, you will have the full attention of the board and the leadership teams and the adults. It's just making sure that you have the preparation and the research in place, and you have a strategic plan, and then you're going to create a movement,
We have some more time for other thoughts if there's anything you think of, Sesame, that you might request from us. And we have time for one or two more questions before we wrap up today. Or other experiences working with youth. Sorry, go ahead, Sesame.
Sorry about that. I mean, like Nestor and Alex said, it's really the essence of it is multi-partisanship. Just get people to work together and go into it with a very, very open mind. It's understandable that sometimes students have these outrageous ideas, but luckily we have very, very amazing teachers that support us and staff that really thinks about change in our school. and we're able to get these things done. So we're very fortunate.
I think one of the other things to take note of is the power of grassroots as well, of just kind of getting on with it and doing your thing and being successful, but being visible. And I think educators always kind of want to know what everybody else is up to and whether the learning is really good and deep, and if it is, then they're interested. And I think if there's compasses up in a room and you're having these really great deep conversations, the school community want to know about it, and it's really powerful. So I think being as visible as possible is really important too.
I'll share. I just wanted to say I heard my hand down. I heard somewhere in the conversation you mentioned the word modeling, and how important it is to be the models or the role models for the younger students who come into the school later on. And I, as an early years teacher, I also want to advocate for that too, that the children do take notice, the younger students do take notice. And I have a story from a school that I worked at where third grade students actually advocated for no laminating at the school that we worked at. And I mean, when you say to a teacher sometimes no laminating, or that we are going to be a laminate-free school, some teachers just hold their breath, like, how are we going to manage without laminating foil and laminating things to put on the wall? But the students together put forward such a compelling argument with the research, third graders, with some support from older students as well. They put forward such a compelling argument, and they organized other things like flash mob dances in the cafeteria at lunchtime and things like that. And then combined that with some of their ATL skills development in writing persuasive letters. And they wrote letters to the board and to the school director. And then in the end, the decision was made, the school will become a laminate-free school as of date X. And from that day forward, all the laminators were collected from all of the different areas and were sold or brought to other Cambodian schools or something, or I don't even know what they did with them. But from that day forward, we were a laminate-free school. And the argument was put forward of how much more environmentally friendly it is, even though you have to probably print something again, but it's nothing that you print is needed for 100 years or more. So from that point of view, it would be more sustainable to reprint and recycle, as opposed to laminating to keep it just for a school year, or in some cases just for a few weeks. So I just want to encourage you to also talk to the younger grade levels as well, and bring some of that awareness about what you're doing, because sometimes they get unnoticed down in the smaller classrooms, but that they do pay attention and they do notice as well. So
and they have great ideas, really creative in younger years, so they're worth talking to.
Thank you for your story, Elaine. That's very inspiring. Very inspiring. Third graders too. That's yeah, I did not do that when I was in third grade. That's pretty crazy.
I want to share some of the experiences I got. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi Doris, thank you.
So I'm an environmental researcher. I just concluded the research on environmental education with some middle school students. So one of the findings and challenges I faced during this course is trying to be accepted in some schools. I worked with some international schools in Bangkok. So due to the COVID situation, it was difficult to be accepted to carry out my research. So I got turned down by some schools. So I noticed that some schools are not really into environmental education. So what I'm trying to ask now is, as an outsider, I'm not a teacher in the school, I'm just a researcher. I found it difficult to be accepted to teach or to use them as a case study. So how do we break this barrier? Because I noticed that the students were so excited. They enjoyed the program and a lot of impact was made through my program. So, but the problem is penetrating the school to accept what you have to do. So it's a big challenge, and I don't know if there's any solution or a way forward for this.
I'd say you go first. What was your name? NASA? No. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. As you mentioned, Doris, you said that the students are really, really enthusiastic about this, and that's probably your segue in. If they're really, really enthusiastic about it, they really want to join this course, then they are your transformers, they're your change makers. You just have to tackle them metaphorically, tackle them, get them to introduce your program into the school, and that's what you need. Once you get the awareness that you deserve in the school and that the students are the one carrying your message, they'll feel like, hey, this is actually a pretty cool course and our students already enjoy it. Maybe we should implement this research course as something that the school can benefit from.
And I'll add to that. Well, I wasn't aware of you and your research. And I think just hearing that now on the call, even with so many educators, I think on the call, share your name, share it, and then be the expert. So today with COVID situation, and people are way more familiar with online meetings and things like that, within the IB schools, there is often a call or a question for their own research to look and speak to an expert. And you would be an expert in this case. So making sure, just sharing your name with the schools so that the schools can reach out to you to speak at different times, different events, or different units of inquiry that the kids are engaging with, and have them send you questions that you can help facilitate finding answers to, and so that they can use you as a what do you call it, a first
Resource.
That's the one. Thank you. As a first resource, as opposed to a secondary resource or so. To have you as a first resource, that would be amazing, and that's what makes the difference.
Yeah.
Speaking of primary resources, we have right now our two users on this call, and we're wrapping up with them shortly. So before I hand it to Cindy and Nestor and Sesame to say a couple of concluding thoughts, I would love to thank everyone for their time on this call today, and to briefly share a couple of opportunities you might pass on to other members of your community, or if you want to think more about youth agency, working in communities, etc. I believe many of you have already taken our level 1 course, our Teaching and Learning for a Sustainable World course. If you have educators who you're working with who might want to learn more how to engage youth with these tools, we have a course for educators that's starting in just under a couple of weeks that will be running online. One of our facilitators is actually on the call today, Kath. It's an amazing course, so please feel free to refer them to our website, where we also have a bunch of short courses, and I've highlighted one here called Community Connections, which actually includes some examples from the camps that Nestor and Sesame were at about how you can use system thinking tools like the Compass to engage youth with learning experientially in their communities. I also want to highlight, in case you haven't seen already, that Compass Education now has a free introduction to the Sustainability Compass on our website, which you can access and share. And we're also in the process of thinking about how to best communicate this to youth so that they can use it and share it as well. And lastly, that we'll be back in a couple of weeks with the president and founder of Compass Education, Robert Seal, to talk about leverage points. So if you want to come back and talk more about that, or about other things related to environmental education, sustainability education, we invite you to come back then. But for the moment, I'd love to hand it back to Cindy, Nestor, and Sesame for some concluding thoughts or ideas for us to take away today.
Nestor, Sesame, you want to go first?
Thank you very much for all of you for attending this great chat. And we really appreciated the questions and the conversations we had with each other. Yeah, we hope you all enjoyed it.
It's also really great to see all of you here, as Nestor said, because you're willing to find a new perspective on how you can approach these things. And just one thing to remember is that I think most of you have been implementing this already. Work with your students, even though they have crazy, crazy ideas. And because multi-partisanship is very, very important. Thank you so much, guys. On to Cindy.
I agree with Nestor and Sesame, and thank you so much. It's always really inspiring to chat with like-minded educators. So it has been really, really fun. I was looking at the clock, I was like, oh, it's been 45 minutes already, really? And we would love to continue these exciting chats and bounce of ideas. So please stay in touch, and we are more than happy to support with any questions that you might still have. Yeah, over to you, Gitanjali.
Thanks so much, everyone. If you do have questions or you want to follow up, you can reach us at team@compasseducation.org or on our website, www.compasseducation.org. And we're happy to try and keep supporting you. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Special thanks to Nestor, Sesame, and Cindy. And we look forward to chatting with you all again soon.